friends, it's Judi Love Bowman back with the exciting conclusion to Chapter 1 of Peaches, Womanist Thoughts on Finding Peace, Overcoming Peril and Tapping Power. Thank you for joining me. For those of you who are just joining us, I'd like for you to try to join us on page 44. We're reading from Chapter 1. What do we do going forward? Where do we go from here? In his historic book, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. raised a question which we needed to answer then and we need to answer today. Whether it is black on black crime, jealousy among black family members and church members, poverty, racism, sexism, the ripple effects of lack of reparations after slavery and segregation, the lack of access to quality education and health care, mass incarceration, and the crack cocaine epidemic, as the majority of those who lead black households, it is time for us, black women, peaches, to answer the question, where do we go from here? Some of the lack of attendance and participation in the March 2017 Women's March had less to do with the scarcity of resources and or health and logistics challenges and more to do with the notion that many of my black sisters have accepted the fact that equality and economic parity are just that, a notion. And we have to make our lives the best each day. After the marching and protesting is over, where do we go from here? I salute my sisters, young and old, who are organizing marches, hosting events, launching products, and networking to help make us more unified, recognized, loved, and successful. Yes, there are those who march, plan, protest, and pray. Yes, those who march, plan, protest, and pray are letting their good works make the music. Peace, power, and love to those who march and represent. Love is power. Power to the peaches. Power to the peaches. Our support of this overground peach movement manifests itself in different ways. Some work in their homes, others in their communities, and others through the fruit they produce. Every part of the body has a function in leading us to answer the question, where do we go from here? This book is the answer for many to the question, so what do we do now? Just 3 short things. Faith, unity, and work. First, faith. God first. As black women, most of us put God first, who has never let us down. Our faith, not our perfection, even if it is the size of a mustard seed, is what we stand on. Scripture teaches that if we have faith, even the size of a mustard seed, that we can say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it shall be done. Nothing shall be impossible for us. Matthew 17:20. I pray to God for mountain-moving faith and miracles in your life right now in the name of Jesus. We were brought to America on ships like property. God will never leave us or forsake us. Despite the pathological, brutal past where we were/are treated as property, we have survived. Now is our time to thrive. 2, unity. We need unity. We need to support one another. Peaches for peaches. In spite of our training to mistrust and have envy toward each other as black women, we can now move to a consciousness where we can support each other and be strong enough to forgive, yet separate ourselves from those who, in some cases unbeknownst to themselves, steal from our joy, peace, and mission in the earth. So we have faith, unity, and then 3, work. We have work to do. Faith without works is dead. James 2:26. Tomorrow is not promised to us. So we have to embrace Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s notion of the fierce urgency of now. We have to work while it is day because night comes when no one can work. John 9:4. Ask God for guidance, pray, and get involved wherever your gifts and time allow. It may be through your family, sorority, civic group, church group, music group, children's group, or your own special talent. I suggest that we get involved with the legacy of Black women like Harriet Tubman, Mary McLeod Bethune, Mary Church Terrell, C. Dolores Tucker, Michelle Obama, Carol Moseley Braun, Mamie Locke, Brenda Lawrence, and Shirley Chisholm. One of the younger trailblazers is Tamika Mallory, who helped to organize the 2017 Women's March and who won the 2017 BET Black Entertainment Television Shine a Light Award. We can do something simple right now, like encourage another Black woman. We have some shared experiences, so we have some basis for intimacy. Tell someone, I believe in you. God has great plans for your life. Tell another Black woman, I trust you. I'm proud of you. You're special. I know you can do whatever God puts on your heart to do. I am grateful for you. Tell another peach, I love you. Why? Why do we want change? Bequeathing the legacy. When traditionally and biblically men are presented as protectors, providers, and priests, the Black race is clinging on to create some sense of a family construct. Often the woman is in a leadership position in historically Black organizations and homes. My mentor and life coach, the Honorable Shirley Chisholm, instructed me and wrote to me about bequeathing the legacy of uplifting the race. She said, Ma Bethune, Mary McLeod Bethune, told her, and she told me to, quote, bequeath the legacy, particularly since so many of our Black men are in prison, ... end quote. We Black women are winning when it comes to heading the fundraising arms of Black churches, youth and missionary activities, civil rights organizations, alumni associations, and other groups which mainline America neither cares about nor has a lot of contact with, other than during election/vote courting seasons. However, within mainline America, we are underrepresented in leadership. Avis Jones Dewar says it best in her article, And All the Women Were White. She writes, despite their talent, skills, and ambition, Black women are rarely given the opportunity to be in leadership positions. As the first Black female elected to the United States Congress and the first Black male or female to run for President of the United States, Shirley Chisholm has established her place in Black history and American history. She was inspired by Mary McLeod Bethune, or Ma Bethune as she referred to her. Born in Maysville, South Carolina, Bethune was the 15th of 17 children. She was fortunate enough to have been able to attend seminary, Bible Institute, and a Presbyterian mission school in Florida, where she served as director. She had a great desire to go to Africa for mission work, but found her calling in starting a school for girls in Florida. She invested $1.50 of her own money, as the story is told, and began her school at the site of an old lot or dump. She sold baked goods and raised money. She made a fundraising speech in my hometown, Hampton, Virginia, in 1908 to the National Association of Colored Women, NACW. As an aside, the NAACP was founded in 1909. And my sorority, the oldest Black sorority, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, was founded in 1908. After raising money at the National Association of Colored Women Convention and a successful fundraising campaign headed by Madam C.J. Walker, she was successful in having a 1915 graduating class of 5 students from Daytona School for Girls. Bethune believed that Black women were to carry the steadying, uplifting, cleansing influence to the struggle. The graduating class of 2017 at Bethune-Cookman showed their cleansing influence when they nearly drowned out U.S. Secretary of Education Betty DeVoe's commencement speech with shouts and boos. To this day, most of the day-to-day work of operating and fundraising in historically black churches, civil rights organizations, and homes is handled by black women. It is not uncommon to have a black pastor who may or may not be able to read well or even own a computer, depend on his wife, First Lady, church secretary, pastor's aid society, or as some called it, a church wife, to handle the program planning, feeding, a major part of black life, funerals, baby showers, and fundraisers. Sometimes he simply has to bathe, suit up, show up, and sing a hymn or holler really loudly and breathe. I neither discredit the devoted, hardworking pastors, nor do I downplay the helps ministries. In fact, I have served as a first lady, assistant pastor, associate minister, Bible study teacher, Sunday school teacher, church school teacher, preacher, children's church leader, and member of the Pastor's Aid Society. I love the church inside and out, and pray that the entire world would accept Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior. At the same time, I take my cue from Minister Jan Van Zant, who says and encourages us to call a thing a thing. It is not uncommon to have non-degreed single women, some of whom seek personal favors, i.e. stamps, VIP tickets, Dr. Pepper sodas, errands, etc., run civil rights organizations. They often dole out awards like dessert to those who buy tables at the functions they host at white-owned facilities. For example, the white superintendent of schools and the white landlord can discriminate against tenants, recklessly put black boys in special education, suspend dark-skinned and or poorer children disproportionately, but as long as they pay their $1,000 per table or buy a $200 advertisement when the local civil rights organizations have a function, no one questions them throughout the year. Some of these pathologies are neither intentional nor malicious. Some are just maladministration and or misadministration. A lot has to do with personal advancement, but more has to do with black women being paralyzed by their own personal problems. Many of us spend so much time on hair, nails, food, survival that we don't know what is going on outside of our own homes. Then the annual civil rights programs often become routine, empty rituals. For example, we make $10,000 on this banquet and we use it to pay for next year's banquet and all of the perks throughout the year. There may be a male treasurer here or there, or a figurehead male, but for the most part, black women handle the business whether they are qualified or not. Whether it is a church, civil rights organization, class reunion, alumni association, or a similar organization, the black woman is usually responsible for bookkeeping, record keeping, fundraising, program planning, and program implementation. This is due to the disproportionate number of black women who are able to lead, read, write, drive, and show up. I applaud those who lead because I realize how difficult it is to lead while dealing with opposition from others and the challenges of daily living. In high school and college, I ran uncontested for student body president. In high school, a Persian male at Shaheen told me that he had been accepted early to Yale and that if I let him run for president and I run for vice president, then when he left, I would be elevated to student body president. I ignored his request. He backed out. I was president. Having gone through the college admissions process with our son, I realize now that Shaheen was dishonest and mendacious about the early acceptance timeline. In any case, he would rather back out than have a black girl beat him in an election. I had a very similar situation in college. George McDonald, a black male, and I were set to run against each other for Student Government Association president at historically black Hampton University. Hampton University Mass Media Department generated election exit poll results from the previous year where I ran as vice president on a ticket with Paul C. Harris. The poll revealed that I was the primary influence on our election victory. This time, I would be on the ticket as president. For some reason, George McDonald decided not to run. I found myself the uncontested student body president. It seems as if some men, black and white, as in my situation in college and high school, would rather drop out than lose to a woman with an agenda. Although some of us are gifted with leadership assignments, I realize that when some of us are struggling to survive on a personal, psychosocial, economic, physical level, it is not easy to focus on an organization in particular and the collective struggle in general. Some of us are doing well just getting up in the morning. This brings us full circle to Maslow's hierarchy of needs and Bowman's theory of advancement. We do not have to merely survive. It is our time to thrive. We can manage our personal lives while excelling in our area of giftedness at any stage of our lives. Although black and white women have different needs, cultures, and resources, Franklin D. Roosevelt's mother, Sarah Delano Roosevelt, worked alongside Bethune, as did the Vanderbilts, Rockefellers, and Gambles. They were all important allies to her. She focused her efforts on the home. Quote, as mothers, wives, sisters, and daughters of men of the race, the National Association of Colored Women should narrow its focus to combating the source of the evils that give the race the unenviable place it holds in the United States, end quote. This focus on the home is similar to my goals with the More Love movement, Dr. Think and Shine, NP15, unity, order, faith, justice, peace, and equality. It begins in each home and each heart. As we discussed, fewer women wanted to just be mothers, wives, sisters, and daughters. They wanted to do. Magazines such as Crisis ran articles about the way people would line up for jobs each day in the Bronx. Some called the phenomenon the slave market. This downgraded black women workers who often hired themselves out for day labor. By the early 1930s, Bethune became fascinated with divergent paths that poor and middle-class women were treading. It was the upwardly mobile women that captured her political imagination. By the 1930s, black women were dispersed throughout numerous professional, educational, and social organizations, such as Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, the oldest black sorority, founded in 1908, which I pledged in 1985 at Hampton University, and the other 8 black Greek letter organizations, which are referred to as the Divine Nine. Today, the black sororities continue to have important roles to play. The mission of every black Greek letter organization is related to bequeathing the legacy in the form of scholarship, community service, excellence, and character. The Urban League, NAACP, Moles, Jack and Jill, Links, sub-debutante groups, Girlfriends, Continentals, and other similar service organizations work in different communities to assist black people in America. Unfortunately, like many other black organizations, including churches, the scarcity of resources, including volunteers, finances, time, and infrastructure, coupled with the lessening sense of urgency for the corporate struggle, has, in some cases, caused organizations to resemble social organizations where the major responsibility falls on the single and or childless black females. How do we implement change? Bowman's theory of advancement. I recommend that each peach engage in Bowman's theory of advancement, BTA, as opposed to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. BTA lets the woman know that, like a man, she can do and be simultaneously. She can be and do simultaneously. This theory, presented for the first time in this book, is designed to heal wounds, release blocks, and launch dreams. Your dreams. It is presented to help you advance and thrive. No matter what position we find ourselves in, no matter the portrait of our lives, we can all move toward thriving and enjoying each day that we are blessed to have on this earth. BTA, juxtaposed with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, brings to view the notion that sometimes our station in life has nothing to do with apathy or misplaced values. Sometimes we are just simply surviving. BTA is how we can advance and be fulfilled in spite of the hierarchical stages imposed by Maslow's theory. I take my cue from Dr. Jeff Howard of the Efficacy Institute, who argues that effort combined with confidence leads to development. In spite of our circumstances of choice and or birth, we can believe in ourselves and work hard. As we discussed earlier, we do not have to wait until our basic needs are met before we begin to contribute to the overground movement where we work to make America a better place for Peaches and everyone else. Where? Where do I stand? Where do I show up in my consciousness and that of others? Black and female, black or female. We discussed earlier the way black women do not always fit into the feminist or white woman's movement due to historical and economic factors. In fact, we are as marginal to mainline women's agendas as peaches are to a traditional American tossed salad. In fact, we are as marginal to mainline women's agendas as peaches are to traditional American tossed salad. Some epidemiologists agree that certain systems of oppressions have different consequences for blacks and females. The consequences are even more unique for those of us who are both black and female. Black women do not always fit into the traditional black civil rights agenda, which typically favors male leadership and female labor. As a black woman, I and many others have had to choose between race and gender and race. By that I mean sometimes in order to preserve the unity in the community and or to protect a black man or historically black institutions, we have often had to deny our own rights and dignity as black women. I have learned that the term misogynoir was created to tackle the misogyny directed toward black women in America, visual and popular culture, as well as in politics. For example, in the case of Anita Hill versus Clarence Thomas, during the Clarence Thomas confirmation hearings, Professor Hill was vilified by many blacks, male and female, for bringing a black man down. These and others overlooked the fact that she was being truthful and standing up for her own space and respect. Someone paid for a bus and sent a bus load of black Thomas supporting women to come to Thomas' hearing and hold signs which read, "Black women for Thomas." Some women would settle for a bus ride and a lunch to stand up for Thomas. Some would have stood against Hill regardless. It was hard for many women, black and white, to demystify the notion of an articulate, polite, not too flamboyant, black female attorney who had spent at least 7 years studying in the academy and was teaching at the time in favor of their version of the archetypal black woman. Many blacks and whites had never seen an Anita Hill, polished, prepared, no single parenthood, all of her teeth, conservatively dressed, almost presidential with 2 parents. Uncle Clarence Thomas was absolutely correct when he referred to the confirmation hearings as a high-tech lynching. The correction is that Anita Hill was the one being lynched, not he. Similar, in my assault trial against C. Eric Lincoln, the Bay State Banner, Boston's black newspaper, reported favorably about Lincoln when he was charged with assaulting a Harvard graduate student. They probably assumed that my Harvard affiliation meant that I was a white woman. When the black press and Lincoln's black students who were interviewed discovered that I was black, it made no difference. I was still a woman, still being harassed like Hill for being unwilling to accept the misconduct of a man, in this case, a black man. Clarence Thomas investigation began September 25th, 1991. I remember watching as the confirmation hearing was broadcast on live television. Thomas denied Hill's claims and called the hearings a travesty. He said, quote, "This hearing should never occur in America. This is a circus, a national disgrace. From my standpoint, it is a high-tech lynching. As far as I'm concerned, it's a lynching for uppity blacks who in any way dare to think for themselves, do for themselves, to have different ideas, and it is a message that unless you kowtow to the old order, that this is what will happen to you. You will be lynched, destroyed, caricatured by a committee of the U.S. Senate rather than hung from a tree," end quote. In his anger, Thomas compared his confirmation hearing to a metaphorical lynching. In fact, it was a metaphorical lynching of Anita Hill, to use Thomas's phraseology. For a black woman who dared to think for herself, be honest, failed to protect a black man in his misconduct, Anita Hill was an example to all women, black and white, that if you blow the whistle, you will be demeaned. It showed us women, especially black women, even professional degreed black women, are a part of the perpetual underclass. Unfortunately, Professor Anita Hill was mistrusted and, as we all know, Thomas was confirmed as a justice of the United States Supreme Court. If an articulate, educated, professional black woman was mistrusted, it is sad to think of the plight of my sister Peaches who live in substandard conditions and are the only advocates and sole providers for their children and grandchildren. The general mistrust of the black woman. Black women are mistrusted too much by whites, blacks, men, and other women to be considered by many as trustworthy accusers. As black women, we are generally mistrusted. The blacker and poorer we are, the more untrustworthy we appear to some. From the courthouse to local police departments and local PTAs, some people would do everything not to believe in or trust a black woman. In many cases, we do not even trust one another. As in the case of Anita Hill, they tried to smear credible witnesses. Like former FBI Director Comey, after meeting with then President-elect Trump, Like former FBI Director Comey, who took copious notes with his meeting with then President-elect Trump, I took copious notes after Eric Lincoln assaulted me. When Comey took notes, he was perceived as being organized and meticulous. On the other hand, when I took notes related to my case with C. Eric Lincoln, I was called aggressive. Pincham, Lincoln's lawyer, after famed attorney Margaret Burnham resigned his case for personal reasons the day before the trial, in my assault case, Pincham quoted John Silber, Boston University's president at the time, and said, "Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned." Scorned. It made a good soundbite in the male's attempt to do what Worcester Assistant DA referred to as circling the wagons. They were protecting the man in his misconduct, regardless of the truth. I am sure 1 in every 3 women has a similar story. I was happily married, refused jewelry, never tried to use him, and just earned an award for timely and successful completion of doctoral coursework while earning my 3rd degree, graduate degree. I was trying to become an honorary member of the figurative Scholastic Boys Club. Meanwhile, he could not overlook objectifying me. Many tried to lie about Professor Anita Hill. They called her a lesbian, which at that time was seen as secretive, sinful, and bad, and accused her of erotomania. Orrin Hatch slammed her after passing a lie detector test. John Danforth was concerned about Hill's psychiatric health. Why do they consider us to be psychotic, untrustworthy, savage, over-sexualized bitches when, in many cases, they are the ones who need the psychiatric examinations and diagnoses? Senator Kennedy whom I voted for in 1994 while pregnant with our son, Legend, said that the hearing should not have been about the character assassination of Anita Hill or about racism. He stressed that the focus of the hearing should have been about sexual harassment. Unfortunately, this subculture of sexual harassment is casually accepted in America today, more than 20 years later. Since a black woman is customarily considered untrustworthy, the hideous sexual sins visited upon us are often overlooked, disbelieved, and overshadowed with unwarranted character attacks. Here, my beloved, ends the reading of Chapter 1 from Peaches, Womanist Thoughts on Finding Peace, Overcoming Peril, and Tapping Power. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you will subscribe to this channel and share this message. In the comments below, let's have a discussion. Let me know what you're thinking. Please share this, and to each of you, have a beautiful day. The Lord bless you and keep you, make his face shine upon you, be gracious unto you, and give you peace, power, and love. More love. Boost.